Okay, hello, welcome back to another game of chess. Today we're facing the move e4 and I'm going to play c5, a beautiful little Sicilian defense here. We're going to go for a pterodactyl, hopefully, unless our opponent goes for anything more freaky. We see knight f3 here, g6 and bishop g7. There we go, the pterodactyl defense. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. They take here, we play queen a5, and now supposedly c3 I think is the best move, even though bishop d2 might be a little more intuitive. It just comes with tempo on the queen. I mean, either way, I think we recapture here on c5. There's a very interesting line, in fact, if they choose to play knight c3, but they do go for the best move, c3. Okay, now this opening is definitely a little dubious. You will never see this played at a very high level in a classical game at all. Of course, it makes very little sense to just get the queen out to recapture a pawn that we didn't need to lose in the first place, but here we absolutely do recapture on c5. They can get some tempo here, developing and attacking the queen with the bishop, but it is definitely an interesting way to play against the Sicilian. Oh, sorry, not against the Sicilian, but against e4, because the pawn on c3 can kind of slow down the development of the knight. It is also just far less classical in terms of our opponent is most certainly out of prep here. Now, you know, the flip side of that should be that I'm not out of prep, but I have not done prep in a long time and I have no idea what I'm doing in this position, which bodes well for a good video, I guess. So, okay, the queen clearly has a lot of squares it can't go to. I think c7 makes some sense, honestly. c7 makes some sense. A lot of assonance there. Is assonance the right word? Someone check in the comments. We will go c7. The queen sits pretty on c7. There's something called, I believe, a Khan Sicilian, where you play like a6 and e6 with the queen on c7. However, alongside g6, that would suck for our dark squares, and they would very easily be able to exploit that if they just have a nice direction to their game. So yeah, they develop their knight. We could argue slightly unnaturally. We'll develop ours. Okay, bishop c4 is interesting. We do have knight e5 with tempo. They can just take. We'd have to just come back with the bishop at some point. So probably not ideal. We could use this for potential tempo to play a6 and b5 here, but I think it clearly makes a lot of sense to start with knight f6. Let's just get developed. I think the fact that the queen's on c7, that generally you want to play a6 and e6, is because the knight on c3 could very easily access these two squares to exploit the queen being on c7 here. However, given that they can't put the knight on c3 immediately, I think this is less of a problem. We do immediately have this, which, here's the bishop, threatens potential mate, although obviously the knight's here, so we're not really threatening the mate. You know what? I'm just going to do this with very little thought, because we leave our knight here. If I can trade this knight for the bishop, I am living life lavish. I'm having a beautiful, beautiful time. Even if they defend with the queen and we don't get that pawn structure demolition with a double isolated e-pawns, getting rid of the bishop for the knight here would be excellent. That would allow us to have a bishop pair and really try to exploit the dark squares. What? What is that? I don't understand that. I don't know why. I mean, yeah, give me that, please. Thank you so much. Also, playing h3 and then allowing your f-pawn to be distracted, let's say, from the defense of g3 means that this is a beautiful hole. In fact, the last video I posted on this channel used, I believe, precisely the same idea of this hole on g3 in a very, very different opening and different setup. But doubled isolated pawns here suck for our opponent, and the dark squares are going to be very, very weak around this king. And oh look, we have a beautiful dark square bishop. It would make some sense to play knight e5, just threatening the bishop here. There's even an argument that we could try and sneak into d3 somehow. But, by the way, before they played h3, I was thinking that I might look for some fishing pole trap somewhere after h3, but obviously they gave me the opportunity to take the bishop, so we went for that instead. I can't work out if d6 is a good move. I do like it because, you know, in general we get to move the light square bishop out here, but actually if you really think about it, how many squares out here are prospects for our dark square for our light square bishop? Sorry, like none. And actually the queen's direct access over here might be more important, and so not playing d6 could be a good idea, and instead trying to develop the bishop out this way, either by playing b6 and fianchettoing, or playing a6, b5, and then fianchettoing the bishop on b7. However, this is definitely very scary and freaky. In fact, our opponent might be immediately threatening to sack on f7 and then some double check, and then coming into f7, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't work immediately, but for sure this is scary. So knight e5 could remedy that. No, it couldn't, because they take, and then I just lose. Okay, hold on. This is definitely more important than I thought. Let's castle kingside. I don't know why I just took so long to do so. We clearly need to defend f7. I guess our opponent could go knight g5 here, but yeah, okay. I see the vision. I guess it now makes much more sense why they let me take here, because they wanted the open f file. I'm thinking queen g3, not immediately because they could take here, although maybe immediately. They take like this, we take with check. They move the king. Nah, that would suck actually. But queen g3 for sure at some point is a lovely idea. We also could just play this. Oh, threatening to take this and defending f7. Yes, this is now, I believe, very appropriate. Making use of the queen being on c7, you probably just play bishop b3 here. If you do play bishop b3, we then get the time to play h6, kick away that knight, such that there's no threat on f7 anymore. I think that makes sense. And then I think we probably want to play moves like queen b6 and build up on here. This does kind of get in the way of my queen g3 thought. And also my light square bishop is very sad right now. But as I've mentioned, b6, bishop b7 really could be quite nice because again, this is an isolated pawn that's currently blockaded as well. And so could be, both of these pawns could be very meaningful targets. Very, very static, especially if we keep the knight here on e5. Bishop b3, h6, knight f3. Now, I don't really want to take here because I kind of think they could take with the pawn. Oh no, that would suck because then we go check here, and we're at least up a pawn with a very weak king. I was just thinking they might be able to redeem the structure, but clearly not. But if bishop b3, h6, knight f3, knight takes. I do love the idea of after bishop g3 just putting the knight in here and like trying to go in like this, but I think we should just take the focus off f7 here. I think we do just kick that pony. And then there's no real need even to trade the knight off. We can just get on with playing b6 and developing the bishop, I think. Although b6 does rob me of b6 for my queen, but I don't think that's very important. We could also, if after b6, go to a6. Right, b6 it is, because I actually really like the bishop's prospects down both of these diagonals, in fact. Especially now, actually, this one, along the blue one here, from a6 to f1. With tempo on the rook, but of course we need a recapture. It seems like a good excuse to get our queen a little more into the game. The bishop sits back here just doing a great job of defending all the dark squares. Probably queen takes is going to do us a world of good here, and then bishop b7, mount pressure on the pawn, and hopefully that will be the beginning of the end for our opponent. Ooh, that's a little dangerous because I have a bishop here on c8. I can definitely just play d5 now, tempo on the queen, although you come across, we take here. I actually kind of hate that. I really don't want to trade queens, and I'd imagine they're going to go to f4 and try to make me trade queens. However, I could bounce across to c5 and put pressure on here. Okay, you know what? We're going to start with queen c5, I think. Putting pressure on here. Getting the queen out of the way of the annoying queen f4. They want to trade queens style move. Also, we potentially have d6 or d5 with big tempo on this queen, which may or may not be useful. Unless they play queen f4 now, just defending the pawn, that's possible. I guess this could have been a reactionary move rather than playing it nice and early now. Because again, yeah, they are really putting all their eggs in one basket with this f-file. I mean, they've made this kind of positional error, structural error in allowing these doubled isolated e-pawns that just sucks. But potentially have a lot of dynamic tactical compensation. However, I can just play e6. And while I have a dark square bishop and you don't, I mean, I was talking earlier about if you put all your pawns on the light squares here, e6 and g6 tend to not pair very well because of the weakness of the dark squares. But if I have a dark square bishop and you don't, you're really not going to do a whole lot there. And so actually just playing e6 patiently, bishop b7, at some point, you know, rook d8, breaking with d5 maybe. I think such an approach should render us victorious because there's an interesting difference between the kinds of advantage me and my opponent are trying to play for here. My opponent's trying to play for an ephemeral, or ephemeral? I'm not sure. Comes from the Greek ephemeros, I think. It means it lasting a short amount of time for those of you who are not so blessed with an absolutely prolix vernacular. Now that is frankly just... Now I'll admit, I did not see that coming. How did I miss that? Okay, no one cares. We take it with check. The knight's going to hang, unless they protect it. We take the knight. They take here. I do this. They go here. I do this. They've got no checks. Honestly, I saw this coming. I saw this coming and I didn't care. Does this actually make any sense? We can take the knight here. Then, oh, but then there's rook takes. And if rook takes, check. King h8, there's queen g8 mate, but king here... I'm probably cooked there, honestly. But what if I just play e6? Your queen then is hanging because of the pin, you know, the pin's just not enacted anymore. And where do you move said queen? I mean, you have to move it. That's non-negotiable. Unless you attack my queen yourself. Aha, very interesting stuff. So e6 here, I sack my queen for a pawn and then take like this. I mean, honestly... why not? You have to go for this, I think, because there's no other move. Like, you move the queen anywhere, we're just going to take the knight. Okay, I definitely missed queen takes g6, but I don't think it was that important. It was clearly a massive oversight not to notice such a thing, but here, I really like the idea of queen h3, and it does allow us to explore a very sharp motif in this beautiful board game, which is the idea of a desperado sacrifice. So I'm sure many of you are familiar, but for those who are not familiar, if knight c4 here, I could play queen h3 because I know that if I take the queen here, I'm going to lose my queen regardless. In a sort of desperation, it's a done deal that the queen's going to be lost. We at least reclaim a pawn for it, and the compensation we get from opening up the king to maybe attacks along this diagonal and the weakness of this isolated pawn. So taking here with check, after they recapture, we get to take this, and it's just an extra pawn, even though this move on its own looks pretty dumb. Now, there are no other loose pieces to attack. The rooks hold each other, the bishop's held, the bishop holds the knight. I think we will take on h3 here, pleasant desperado. Pre-moving this, of course. Even if they play king g1, I think that's probably the best move. And now we're up a pawn in an endgame with a very pleasant diagonal here, although, knight d6 does suck, actually. They could start by taking here, then I play bishop takes, and now you don't have knight d6. So actually, I'm very grateful for you taking that. Had I played king takes, basically knight d6 is just a very annoying blockading move. Put pressure on here and here. I mean, okay. Kind of don't care at all, actually. We play this, we step out of the pin here, we defend the pawn. You could come across and probably will. No, they don't. I guess they want to come in here with check. Bishop here. They give a check. I step back. I do not really want to allow such an infiltration, I don't think. I need to move. Okay, bishop d6. I have no time. Check. Here. Rook's hanging, knight's hanging. Awesome. Get that knight out of here. Bishop b7. They probably do this. We need to get the rook here. I have 22 seconds in a dream. Oh my lord, why do I do this to myself in every endgame? Okay, opponent doesn't have that much time either. They do have significantly more time than me, I won't pretend. But I mean, what? They've got 150 seconds? I got like 22. They only got like, what, 6 times, at least 7 times the amount of time. Okay, knight goes here. We'll just draw back. Just drop back. Better safe than sorry. I used 2 seconds on that move. That is frankly unforgivable. We need bishop b7 very quickly. Although if you do this, I'm going to be very concerned. We're actually going to bring the king across if you do that, I think. Bang. Come across, I dare you. Okay, here we go. Now we're talking. Now we are talking. Bring the king in. Pawn still pinned. Bring that king in. Blockade. You can give this check. That's really annoying. I have to leave, probably by the exact same square I came in with. That kind of sucked. That kind of sucked. Did lose a huge amount of tempo there. Fine. Move across. Everything's held. Beautiful. Bellissimo. Just lost a pawn. No one cares. We're going after this one. We're going after this one up here. Because I do this. These are held. This is held. This is held. Your knight's got suspiciously few squares to which it can move. Maybe bishop c6 and bishop here. And we really try and pin that knight in here. These arrows are just frankly fantastic. Bringing down the time deficit though. They now only have approximately 6 times the amount of time. That's going to cascade nice and quickly, of course. They drop back in here. We give a check. I'd love to be able to pre-move this. I think I can, honestly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that piece. Okay, and now, I mean, we can take a sort of leisurely end to this game. Leisurely indeed. We've got absolutely plenty of time. I mean, there's in fact nothing more relaxing than playing this endgame. Nothing in this world more relaxing than playing this precise endgame here. I'm just chilling. I'm chilling. I'm absolutely chillaxed. Chilling out. Yeah. Yeah, and we're just going to go here, bring the bishop to g4 probably, try and get my king in there. You know, it really is that easy. Go in here, get on that diagonal so I can now bring my king to g4. Push, we can just freeze the motion of all the pawns really. Yeah, give a check, start, you know, moving this one up. It is that simple, and our opponent is probably going to resign imminently. We'll just give him a check just to throw away a piece. Oh, yeah. Just relaxing, honestly, because this was still winning. Okay, so after claiming my title as the most nonchalant chess player in history, let's analyze that game. So, 92% accuracy, couple blunders, couple mistakes and couple inaccuracies. Not exactly sure that's 92% accuracy, although with a long drawn-out endgame Super Saiyan making only best moves, I'm sure that boosted up the overall accuracy. Clearly a blunder here. Knight g4 is a blunder? What? Ah, maybe they had some bishop f7, you know. Okay, we'll look at that anyway. King h5 was okay. We'll have a little look at this, but overall, I think pretty cool game. We saw a pterodactyl. I will just open the Masters database here. Hyper accelerated pterodactyl, and then after they take the Western Ramphorhynchus, insane name. Honestly, they're all named after like dinosaurs. It's why I play this opening. I know it may shock you to know that the most esteemed chess player you look up to, myself of course, selected his opening repertoire purely based on the mentality of a 7-year-old child. But no, straight up, I do just think it's cool that they're called dinosaurs. That's it. I mean, this is a board game, you know. You gotta have some fun. Anyway, we take here. Bishop here, queen c7. This is the top master move. Awesome, the most regularly played master move. Knight here, and apparently the only master game that had happened here between two presumably Polish people, between, I'm going to give this my best shot, Krzysztof Lukasiewicz and D. Markowski. Probably nailed that, to be honest. Anyway, interesting position, knight f6 here, and then instead of castling, I went for knight g4, which was actually a blunder, and yeah, it was bishop f7, because after here, knight g5 presumably, and then like, yeah, hold on, it's literally here on the side. King g8 here, d5, queen e2, king h6. Okay, yeah, the bishop f7 tactic was in fact there. They missed it, we got to take here, and then from this point on, there were a couple of moments where I gave back the advantage to drawing, but I was never losing from this point on. So castling makes sense, knight here is beautiful, kicking the knight out makes a lot of sense, and then b6. The engine does actually like knight d3, which is annoying because I really wanted to play it. I thought probably I should go b6 first, such that maybe bishop a6 and then knight d3, and we actually somehow kind of outpost the piece in there with the bishop, but we see this trade here, and then instead of e6, yeah, I just played queen c5, which as I mentioned could have been a kind of reactive move after here, and I don't know why I played it immediately necessarily, but it's still not a bad idea, although sorry, of course it's a slightly bad idea because we lose this pawn here, so e6 should have been played. I just missed this idea. However, it allowed me after check here and then e6 to play this beautiful little desperado idea. Now, if I had taken the knight, yeah, I was right in saying that rook f7 would have just toasted me, because if I take here, check here and mate, if I don't take, there's going to be mate here. If I do take and go here, I think in the game I was saying queen f5, but actually queen g8 seems far more, yeah, this, okay. Here and then like maybe they bring the rook in or something, I don't know. Pretty sure I'm losing there though, so taking that would have been way too risky. And instead we play e6, the queen's hanging, so's the knight. They move the knight, attacking our queen, so we throw the queen away to open up this king, to be up a pawn, and then I should have taken with the king? What? Oh, I guess that I could have played king e7 actually. And if you go rook here, king e7 makes a lot of sense, because then we kind of cross this wall. Yeah, that was pretty dumb, but I was just very scared of knight d6. I think I also had, yeah, at this point I had under a minute now. So if you look, this line is not even halfway across the span of the game. I need to work on my time usage. But we enter where Lichess determines this is the end game. With 52 seconds left, the knight comes in, we bring the king up, and then go fairly Super Saiyan, honestly. I mean, oh wait, hold on, sorry, I spent 22 seconds on this move. Or sorry, like 21 seconds on this move, but why? Why did I do that? They did have this, and then rook d1, which would have been interesting and probably very scary, but yeah, 20 seconds here, and then just absolutely Super Saiyan stuff. Bring the bishop in, bring the rook across, get the trade in, bring the king up, blockade, lose some tempo, but no one cares, and then just go on an absolute spree. How is that a blunder? It wanted king g7 instead. You know what? I'm thinking it might be because we bring the king over. Yeah, here, bishop d6, and the idea with the knight getting trapped. Yeah, look at that. That's insane. Okay, obviously I have, how many seconds here? Yeah, 15 seconds. I'm not finding this to play bishop d6 to then bring the king over to trap it. I instead went across here because I wanted to pursue this pawn. They take. We then did begin to trap in this, this knight here. They move the king across, and then finding bishop c6, and then the check, picking this up, less than 10 seconds, 9.7 in fact, but if Usain Bolt can run 100 meters that fast, I can damn well win this endgame. We shuffle the bishops about, bring the king in, win the pawn, get the two passes, start progressing the pawns, and then actually just make nice progress into g4. I mean, obviously, I don't know why I didn't take this pawn, but I just had no time left. We bring the bishop in here, mate in 9 now, bring the king across, simple matter of pushing the pawn, giving a check. Probably it would have been cool to give this bishop f3 check as well. Oh, they go back here, we go check, here, check, here, mate, is that? Anyway, point is, it really doesn't matter because we just had this beautiful bishop pair. There was mate in 1 here. Oh, that would have been sick. But I was definitely looking for that, and that's why I threw away the bishop at the end, because after the check, I was hoping they'd go king here. I was hovering over f3, I think, because if they go king here, we get this beautiful checkmate. But after they went king back, I just had the bishop in my hand, or I guess my mouse, but I selected the bishop, I guess, and so I just threw it away with check, because this is still winning. You know, just styling them a little bit, and you know, if they go here, we can just take the bishop. They can try and run, but we're going to promote, and if they don't go there, then I don't know, if they bring the bishop back, let's say, we get to push, promote with check, and there's probably going to be some kind of checkmate like this. But instead, my opponent timed out in the single opposite colored bishop's endgame that isn't a draw. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully that time scramble at the end there was more exhilarating for you than it was for me, because I was so nonchalant and chilled out during the whole thing. I sincerely hope that you, on the other hand, were on the edge of your seat. But more seasoned Will Taylor Chess subscribers will know that I clutch those every single time. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. See you guys in the next one. Goodbye.